Good evening, everyone. Yeah, good evening. So glad to see you all here tonight to celebrate our friend W.J. Lofton. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're very honored always to be here in the space of the Auburn Ave Research Library on African American culture and history. We do many wonderful events here all the time. We are so grateful for the library staff, particularly at this moment when libraries are under attack, quite literally being defunded, and librarians really need all of our support right now. So if you don't have a library card, get a library card. Get one here. You can actually spend $30 and get one with beautiful artwork by Charlie Palmer that honors the first woman librarian that was related to this library. If you've never been, like a scholar in this library, the archives here are amazing. We're very lucky and to have an incredible library system here in the city of Atlanta, and we need to patronize it now more than ever. So it's always really special when we as a bookstore get to do public and popular education in coordination with our public libraries. We really believe in that. We think it's a feminist and queer project. I'm really grateful that you're all here tonight. So we also are really excited when we get to work with other bookstores and booksellers. And one of those people is Rosa Duffy. Yes. Rosa is the owner and operator of Four Keeps, a bookstore right here down the street. You probably drove by if you don't already know it, that specializes in Black, classic, and rare books. Rosa gets to do the thing that all booksellers kind of wish we could do, which is like just curate beautiful things and talk about them. And her collection is amazing. So if you've not been to Four Keeps, meet Rosa, go check it out. Dartricia Rollins is the visiting librarian for oral history in the Rose Library at Emory University. She is the co-founder of Georgia Dusk, a Southern liberation oral history, as well as an organizer with the Black Alliance for Peace and the Jericho Movement. Very recently, she was my coworker. I miss her every day at Charis. But she's an amazing person, amazing organizer, and I know these two folks are some of the biggest boosters for W.J. Lofton. And W.J. Lofton, I met through Dartricia, and it's been so wonderful to have Will in our space at Charis. His energy, as y'all know, because you're already here, is so gentle and so beautiful and generous. And even though he's a Chicago-born poet, we are claiming him in Atlanta. We try to take him from Chicago. Yes. So Chicago can try and take him back, but we're going to keep him here for as long as possible. He is a multimodal artist. He is the author of A Garden for Black Boys Between the Stages of Soil and Stardust. His work explores the intersections of race, class, and gender while focusing on Black queer men's attempts at intimacy and the tensions and wonders of boyhood. He has received fellowships from Cave Canem and Emory University. He's a recipient of Ava DuVernay's LEAP grants. His work has appeared in Time, Wildness, Obsidian, and Spotweb. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia, where he co-curates Rebellion, a writing salon at the Keats. And he is the author of Boy Maybe poems, which we are celebrating here tonight. So please put your hands together. They're going to be Hey y'all, can y'all hear us? No. Hey y'all. Yeah.
So welcome to our show. This is my friend Rosa and his third friend Will, and we're holding pasta tonight. First, Well, can you start off by reading us a few poems? In particular, Greenhouse and a different.
It's just okay. This is going. Hey y'all, how y'all feeling? I would like to speak for us in a specific place and time. 60 years ago, Dr. King arrived in Montgomery after marching for 5 days from Selma, protesting the denied voting rights. And so I want us to think about as we're gathering for the community, what power that we have together as a community and how we can be mobilized in this moment. I hear yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, I want to say thank you because you could be anywhere right now and you're sharing this space with me, and that means a lot. And also take advantage of all the brilliant writers and artists that you're sitting beside. These are some of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. So talk to each other. Dream house. We an ocean of arteries, blood vessels, wind wrapped in wool. Cartoons watch me, a boy, maybe. Borrowed Barbies in my blooming. Buffy aficionado broke boundaries with t-shirt wig beyond heaven's imagination. Dream house, dog walker, dying to touch my mother's cheek. Promised to remember this go round. She was unquenchable. Wooden box holding water, unquenchable. Royal needle wielder in the 80s. Wayer of 8 children, all too heavy. One given by her father, burden on top of bruise, black like me, I am sore, spoonful of funeral song, grief gone loud, can't remember what they sang, just my father's face, eternally painted still, I look just like my daddy, otherworldly, dressed in my best, going out clothes, heel clicker, concert goer, comet gazer, remains of my mother, a meteor around my siblings' necks. I am ready now. Teeth brushed, showered, hair ponytailed, dog walked, dying, dream house, driving to a new city where my blood ain't used for diary ink, dirge, curbside dinner for holies, disinfecting for another man's living, me from the beginning, ocean, blood, wind, boy, maybe. Rest your lips. God, I'm thankful for the dew on the grass, for the praying mantis hidden there, for the hungry bird gathering the green meal and speak. Heavenly Father, you feed them. Am I not much better than they? God, I'm thankful for the twig the fowl found you in, for the branch bringing it into its bark like birth in reverse, for the leaf being a generous force. Oh, oxygen occupying my lungs. Oh, Lazarus whistled back through his body's keyhole. Oh, Bernicia meaning reborn. Oh, in a sect she yet had been murdered. Oh, spectacle of the bee's belly upturned below the plum tree. Oh, dragonfly drinking dew off railroad's lunch pails. Oh, a time a Tennessean boy placed teeth in me. Oh, what must whiskey gums warn us of? Oh, familial spat fattened into laughter. Oh, unstable pleasure metered into moans. Oh, tongue touching like a tiger's whisker on the pock-marked back of a lover, for it is God who works in you. God, I'm thankful for the preaching scar, for it being a temple of sound beyond sorrow, for muscle resting on bone, Oh, you who saw the farthest into me, oh, my wailing made room for another sound. Midnight's mentioning Janet Jackson cooing, cause I'ma be the queen of insomnia. Oh, fag hips, high-fiving hands hanging by bent wrist. Relief runs, tonic rivers into my tongue, peppermint, feverfew, rosemary, oh, haunted hip traced by a no longer lover. Oh, on time, angels' instructions arch your back, adjust your hips heavenward. Oh, August of 92 and 48. Oh, Freddie Panther of a man. Everything felt possible with you here. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. God, I'm thankful for Imani's grandma shaking a sugar sky over a cradle of cornflakes. For you, Father, for you, Mother, for the tambourine's terror tearing up silence. For you, love, for you, wind ripper, for you, tornado wind, for the whirlwind and storm and the clouds dusting your feet. Thank you.
So, wait, that's a really first tonight. So, the book doesn't have a title poem, but I know her dream house asks, similar questions that I think the title has. Way maybe. And so, why is title?
I look at Boyd as a reckoning, me trying to reckon with all of these experiences I've had in my life. I also look at it as cartography. It's me mapping my place in time, me mapping my place where the bruises are in my body. Love and loss is also me measuring the possibilities and also allowing questions to exist. The baby refuses an answer. That's how life feels like for you. Sometimes you think you are confident in something, and then here comes a disruption. Well, not just a disruption, but a possibility. So I wanted to leave room for all that was possible. And questioning also my expression, my gender expression, and thinking about how oftentimes Black children are not allowed to be children. And I wanted to know what it felt like to be a boy, and if I ever had been a boy, and had the opportunity to be a child. Being raised mostly by my sister, a Black girl, I saw and identified how Black children are often not allowed access into childhood.
And so, a little lore. I asked you to readjust your hips because back in 2021, when you were originally working to publish a collection of poetry, that was the original title of that collection. And so I'm interested in how your work has changed between Adjust Your Hips and Boy Maybe. And you also decided to keep that poem.
Well, I grew up. What I was thinking about was adjust your hips was an assertion. It was an instruction. And I thought I had an answer. You know how when people just know they know something, they want to push it. As I before this book came out, my godmother died, COVID happened, all of these things happened. And my foundation shifted in a way that I was tasked to either see it as an opportunity or an obstacle. And the boy made me allow for more room to think about life, to allow for me to engage with a place where I am socially, culturally, and adjust your hips is wonderful. It's an appreciation for all the things that I believe God has granted us, like community. And also, when I was writing Adjust Your Hips, I was also reckoning with God in a way that I was not reckoning with God. Or maybe I knew how I felt about, like I knew how I felt about God and Adjust Your Hips. It was very celebratory. It's very paying homage. Here I'm like putting the razor to not, no blasphemy, right? But I'm like, I have questions, right? all this poverty, all this stuff, all this destruction, I have questions.
So, to bring Rosa into the conversation, we could have been on the stage with anybody, but you invited us. And we talked about, how important Black women have been to your life, like the way you talk about your sister, and poems about her. But I'm curious, I'd like for you to talk about your relationship to Black women and your relationship to this Black woman in particular. And I also would like to invite Rosa to join the conversation and talk about Black literary spaces as a place that, for me, this is the first place I met you.
I met Rosa when I was taking a mental health break from work one day. And I was like, I'm just gonna go walking on Auburn Ave. And I saw this store, it said Rare Black Books. I was like, well, that sounds like a place that I should walk into. And I walked into the store, and you know, if you ever met Rosa, she's like, well, hey. And we started talking, and we developed a friendship. And I also respect Rosa, and I respect you. And when it comes to Black women, they are always pointing me back to myself. Black women are generous in a way where they are always pointing people back to themselves. And I found that generous.
So can we talk about how Rosa, how poetry has influenced you in your life, but also your art practice and your collecting practice over decades? And I'm gonna make it a thing. Okay.
That's a good question. I think I first started collecting poetry was like the center of what I was interested in. I admire poets and what they're able to do with the written word. It's something that I find mystifying, even if it's something that everybody is capable of doing. And it's something that I didn't find myself able to do. Even when we have our rebellion workshop, I'm still like to this day, that doesn't feel comfortable kind of reciting out loud. So it's just something that I admire. It's a practice that I truly admire, and I find really important because it's not necessarily entirely straightforward. You have to sit with it in a way that's like, very intentional. So I've always been a big collector of poetry. I love Lucille, I love Sonia Sanchez. Jane Burnett is one of my favorite people of all time. How she shows up in her visual practice and her practice is something that I don't know if I would say I was really in it, but she's very inspirational to me. So being brilliant and like watching how he works is something that I was always in awe of, and I still feel very honored that he likes existing in this space, and he brings a lot to critiques, not just in his practice and in the material that he created, and the way that William shows up. He's the way that he's rhythmic in the words that he writes, he's rhythmic in the way that he interacts with the people around him. And I take a lot from how, and I've said intentional, but how intentional he is when he shows up. He can critique you without making you feel worthy about yourself, and I think that's a real skill that a lot of people can learn from. And so every time I'm around him, I'm taking somebody with me when I leave. So I just appreciate the practice, and I appreciate kind of the care that he puts into his practice. So poetry has shaped me probably in every way, and I think I translate it into my own practice when I'm making visual work. And yeah, it's something that I hold close to my heart that I still feel like I could never do, which kind of brings me into should I ask a question? So I'm curious about your ritual, because I think you speak a lot about ritual, but I'm curious about, like I said, I find it mystifying. I think that a lot of people find the art of poetry something that they could never do, right? And if you kind of create a world around when you're writing, like what do you do, what do you eat, where do you sit? There's a book that really helped to shape my own practice called Cave Rituals, and just reading how people were able to continue to practice, like nurture the practice, and it's not that crazy. These three things help them to be consistent with their work. I'm curious, what are the things that you find contribute to you being the best, poet that you can be?
So definitely don't follow my reading practice. But I think about poetry or poetics, not on the page for the poetics that's in the act of living, in a way that I'm always observing, and observation is a practice of gratitude. And I'll be in conversation with my friends, and once again, like I said, y'all are in the room, some of the most brilliant people in the world. And just in a conversation, I will hear something, and y'all will see me write this down on my phone, and you will see it in a poem, because it's bringing me back to another understanding of life, existence. That's my primary ritual of paying attention to the people in front of me. That's what we know each other. And then also I love walking. I love yoga. I love things that require me to be mindful, that bring me back to my body, that allow me to think. So yeah, those three things.
Well, you can tell that a lot of it comes from being present with the people that you're with. Which are very personal, how they are pulling from your environment. Yeah, I think that's one question. I talked to you about this earlier, but which is some job artists in your book that were imperative to your completion of this work. I'm curious about how sound works with you. I was watching a Lucille Clifton interview and she talked about sound and the fact that when she was starting her practice, or initially when she started to write poetry, she didn't feel as if there were poets kind of sounding the way that she does sound. And she felt as if it was introduced to her in the practice of writing poetry is kind of a rigid and formal practice. And she feels like there needs to be some, there was some authenticity missing to the way that people were reciting their work. And I'm curious about what you bring, maybe that's a different, one, how do you sound in practice? One. Two, like I said before, it's very rhythmic. And I wonder about the way that you place the word on the page. If you read this book, you'll see that it's not the traditional one line after the other. There's a design aspect to it that kind of, I kind of see a parallel with jazz, like from Pullman to Coltrane. I feel like you were doing both traditional jazz format and a free jazz format when I look at your work. And so I'm curious about when that kind of comes into the work. Is it while you're writing it, you see it in that way, or is it after the kind of the words come together and you're like, this is how I see them placed?
So two things. To answer your question about to go back to the question of what happened from the title change and also writing, Cave Canem happened. I went to Cave Canem and I was around Black writers who were asking questions. They didn't assume that they knew answers. And that I just wanted to shout out Cave because that changed my perspective of writing. And also the first poem in the book is also influenced by Breonna Taylor. He's a deaf poet, and the absence of some words is playing with how he plays with sound, the absence of sound. He was my poet, and he wrote this poem, and I love how the absence of words allow for movement on the page and allow for imagination to take place. There's a part where there's a dash, and you have to complete the word in the first poem. And however you approach the poem is how that word will resolve itself. And I'm also thinking about just the cover artist, Natalie Lauren Sims. We wrote some music together. And so that also shows like in the poetry, because I also experience life in several ways. I hear conversation poetically and also musically, and I also experience the world cinematically through stills. And so the rhythms you're experiencing is my affection for music, such as Alice Smith, and also Jason Moran, brilliant. I love Jason Moran. If y'all don't know who Jason Moran is, check him out. A wonderful jazz artist. But I like what jazz allows me to do is it allows me to enter. It feels like all threads of life are connecting at one time. And Dream House feels like jazz to me because I'm trying to make understanding out of all these collisions that happen around me. And I think jazz and peace makes peace of that. And it allows me to have peace. Although it's a little noisy in some ways, but good jazz allows a balance.
I want to ask you to read another poem, and then I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if you need a podium or if you can hold it, or if I can hold it for you, whatever. Could you read for Kadarius, Keith, and Miles?
Yes. For Kadarius, Keith, and Miles. 45 degrees, stiff armed, anxious to make death grunt. An AR stiff at our sides, strapped to our chests. Fatigue fell on us years later. Under God, we crawled through our mothers and our mothers' fears, crawled through cherry-stained mud, crawled through money too slim to pour milk, a means to an end, crawled knees past skin limits, stripped me down, stripped you down, made me pledge, stripped you down, made you pledge an allegiance to death making, an allegiance to tank riding and nation tilting. How we survived the smoke, how we escaped the factory. I made a home in you where bullets can't reach. You made a home in me where our enemies can't see. Brother, I know what they did to you. I wore the flag blowing backwards in the wind too. I promise we never have to mention again. For the times we laced our boots and marched in the opposite direction of our families. I promise never to mention again. We swear. There are other wars to talk about.
So this preface, I hope you don't show the.
Wait.
Okay. You know what? Okay. This preface is one of the most beautiful I've ever read, and I've got highlights, circles, wiggle, all up through it. So, in the preface, you wrote about what this collection is, quote, a queer artifact, anti-colonial weapon, survival song, as well as, quote, I remain steadfast in denying the lies this country and its imperial cruelties have attempted to seduce me with. And so I should read that poem, one, because I love to see how you interact with the three of them, and I love to see your friendships. And I read the poem and all of your poems as an artifact, as a memory, as witnessing on the page. And also many of your poems are dealing with capitalist alienation, dealing with, US empire and how we understand it domestically and internationally. And so, I don't know that I really have a question other than I wanted us to talk about those things because this book does so many things, But I think that that's something that feels really important to talk about always, not just right now, but literally always. And how you understand it through your poetry.
So this is another reason why you two are on stage, because you two have been intro to my political understanding. Right, the books that you have shared have shaped my knowledge. Outside of just me being Black and queer, I understand that there are systems in place that allow for poverty, right? That allow for the genocide of Gaza to continue. There are systems that make us small and enact hatred and violence amongst each other. And that's why I say simply yet intentional violence in the purpose. You know, I think it's okay to say, oh, this is how I show up in the world, but what happens when people are subjected under violence and to violence, and that becomes an ideology that we share, and we can reach for something more interesting, more creative, more generative, that evolution, like thinking about what a world was like. We can walk outside and have fresh air. What does that feel like? What is that experience?
Question building on that, I think when you recently talked about the seductive imperial abilities and how you feel the need to reject them. The kind of forces that you have to avoid and navigate and ultimately reject in order to stay grounded in who you are. Writing and publishing often happens through systems or institutions that can hold those systems. And I'm curious about you being a Black queer writer, the things that maybe you would warn or help others through about them doing something similar to what you're doing right now when it comes to publishers or something else with an institution like Random House. I don't know necessarily like how it went for you, but I know that there's always going to be some of the blocks that have done similar things. I'm curious how it went for you.
Well, I had to take my soul first. Like, I was gonna write this book and it was not gonna get published. That was the work of my soul that needed to take place to free in a certain type of way. And I was just interested in touching the core of myself. And living an artful life will cost you everything. I'm aware of that. It requires everything. And I know you sit on stage, I got this nice cherry time. And also there are times where I feel like I am going crazy.
Right.
Because once again, going back to the systems that want you to, get these jobs, that you go to ethics out the door, that allows for a comfortability. However, if we come together in a communal way, we can challenge those systems, and we don't have to feel like we're going out of our minds. And also, I just feel like if you are going to write something, you just have to write it. You can't wait on permission, because you'll be waiting forever. Former life, I was in the military, and I was writing poems when I was in Afghanistan. There was like rockets coming in, and I was writing poems. That's what I have with poetry. I would do this for free. I am doing it for free. Right? But do your soul's work. Do the thing that allows you to be in community with people, and you can show up as yourself and you allow someone else to show up as themselves. And then when people come together, you can make something happen, something that looks like freedom. And not as abstraction.
About how you feel very Garden of Black Boys, that you had just published that week for the first time, self-published. And
House.
Yes, of course. And I saw that right away. Everybody was like, I'm obsessed with this. I don't even know what it is. And everyone was a fan immediately upon seeing the cover initially, and then they would get into it. And it was like, this is beautiful. So I know that was during the first presidency of you. I don't feel comfortable saying his name. And then when you were getting into, pitching, Boy Maybe, that was during, divided, administration, both violent, both upholding white supremacy. And now releasing the book, we're into the second Trump, administration. And there is a very heavy emphasis on criminalizing black text, liberating text, radicalized, text, and things that they deem dangerous. How are you moving through that? The fact that in November is inaugurated and now in March, your book is coming out. How are you processing that?
I think it's so important to have ethics because his preface was written, like we said before,
Right.
And now we get to see the challenge and the demand that is before us, to challenge these imperial seductions.
Yes.
But that first had to start with the way I was living my life. And I don't get it right a lot of times, but being in community with people who have a certain type of politic allow me to do a specific type of work. And I think in order to overcome this administration or any administration, we always have to go back to history, the role of archivists, the role of librarians, where books are sort of information of how people have survived this before. This is not the first time something like this has happened, and there are tools at our disposal that we can use. I don't have the answers, but I know where I can find them. And I would say to you in the audience, if you don't know where to find them, there's resources all around you, because things are not going to get easier. That's the truth. And also ignoring it is not going to solve the problem. Being in community is the only solution.
So picking up on the thread of community, and also an archive, the acknowledgements. Now I'm not gonna have you read out everybody's saying, because we all might be in there. So I want to talk about community, and community that you had and built around you, and in creation of this work, and the record that you made by acknowledging them in this book.
So the acknowledgements represent community and folks who allow me to show up fully, and also the acknowledgements as a ledger of people who exist. I think it's very important to name people who have loved you well. And as I enter, as this book is entered into a record, I think we all should enter into a record, because we are each other's artists. It's that simple.
I'm just gonna preempt audience questions, because I feel like a question that people often ask is, what are you doing next? Even though things just came out today. But there is a through line. So your next project, your next book is your memoir, Sioux City. And there are many poems in this collection that reflect on your childhood, and your life in general, of course, such as the reports, which I'm not gonna make you read it right now. You can't believe it. Miles, yes, we like that. Thank you. But my question after you read is, how has Way Maybe allowed you, has it allowed for an entry point for you to begin addressing sort of particularly painful moments in your life, so that you can now write them in this other form, in a memoir?
I'll answer the question first.
Okay.
Poetry has saved my life. like that's what it is for me. It is my lifeboat, and I didn't know that some of this stuff existed inside of me until I would approach the paper. And that's how I was able to recognize, oh, this is what this hurts, or this is what this hurts, or also this is what makes me happy. And it's not just steeped in devastation, but in order for me to write to my sister, I had to write about all the stuff that we had gone through. I was not interested in staying in a place of pain, but the pain exists. And I wanted to just be honest about it. And so it allows, it's a guardrail of something. This is how the memoir will go. And I also want to treat the memoir with such care because I'm writing to my sister. And I think it's vital. It was vital for me, and it is vital to me to write a memoir that's also named after my sister. And I'm thinking about how, once again, how important it is for Black women to see themselves reflected and celebrated in positive, affirming ways. It's nice to have a table of contents. Gravity reports. Mama is fighting gravity and making Reese's sister's lips. Down the hall, Big Mama's knee Sunday sag, says she's praying for some relief and winning the lottery. Mustard seed faith, she calls it. Asks us how we beg Jesus. Asks us, are our needs involved? We report, we make the dirt move. Thunder, telephone lightning, and buys us a minute with God. Prayer feels like rain at first. Feels like an ocean being planted and unplanted, drowning and undrowning. Memories meticulous as ants in a meadow. Mama is fighting gravity. Mama reports the latch is maggot covered, then lifts the lid. Everyone is offered laughter in this bowl. The hands reaching for bacon, brother, sister, saint, and sinner, extractive of the ticket. Mama's wizened mandible wiggles words. I love you. She falls down. She returns to God like Big Mama to her knees.
So, okay, I believe 5 minutes to ask questions. But could you close us out with one more poem? I know. But I have so many. Okay, so I would like for you to read a poem that is actually not in this collection.
It'll be in the next one.
Hey.
Whenever they come out.
Yeah, yeah. Can I read what you wrote to describe? Okay. So the poem is "The Lord is American," and you published it in Poem a Day. You wrote, quote, "I rarely felt safe as a child. The closest I felt to safety was hanging with my cousins or being by my older sister's side. Even then, I felt danger huffing about talking to me. As a child whose parents suffered premature deaths due to America's inadequate healthcare and mental health systems, I'm often thinking about children and how they are wrestled down by adult failures. The world's cruelty shows itself to children through adults, even before they learn words like war, ceasefire, and later genocide. I believe we owe children a world that loves them, and we must struggle for it at any cost." And so with that, thank you for us. The Lord is American.
The Lord is American. The world undresses, it wounds its father. his memory torn, clouds, forgetful weather. God's goodness to exposed bone clean, our fingers twist crumbs from air. We are hungry children abandoned by our country for bombs, for rockets, red glare. How could we ever be patriots? My father is my flag. The national anthem is every word, every single word my mother could not whisper, could not say, could not say. Her father colonized her, made her mother nasty with jealousy, could not say. She can't say in this world of touching. It names, it less evil. It is too gentle. It kneels on Sunday. The Lord is American and aims his rifle at us, his children, once beggars rise into gorillas. A mighty long time. Children cannot forget the way adults make them feel what they do wrong in their sleep. They wept for a mighty long time. What they do wrong while eating, they wept for a mighty long time. Cannot forget the way my not mother made me silent. I held my sister's hand in the invisible kind of way, with eyes be wept in plastic tears, unmoving for a mighty long time. Not brave enough to kick or shout or kill. Our abusers did not outlive us. They came to teach pain. I want you on a light note. Oh, W. We need a Wayne Thin Doodle. A lawn chair holding high-waist cousins racing sacks across the yard, just a few feet away. A pound cake offers itself in glazed slices. There's lemonade tea, sweet as niceness. Have some, save it for later, in some foil, fix a plate, hug your young necks around one another as swans do in summer. Remember home in sunlight with its warm prayer, waiting, just waiting for the weight of you. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna steal Rosa's mic for real too quick. And lettering is still giving you three. Now go back to Lex. You got one, you got down here.
So, everything I've heard, something that I was able to read while we were here was the preface. You were talking about how, your patchwork leading up to this, you felt like it was one-dimensional or thin because you focused so much on desire. And the thing that you said, like, was really, really stuck with me. You said, desire appeared as a panting dog, which begging for water, if anybody willing to pass it a bowl. So, I guess now where you are with desire, what is your relationship with that? Do you feel like it's something that you live with, something you throw away, it's something that you just better learn to deal with?
Thank you for your question. So I did feel like my previous work was one-dimensional. I felt like because I was propositioned with money for this book, I could have done something that was one-dimensional, and I refused that. But there's a type of freedom that you can interact with when you're not being overrun with work. So this, I had to refuse to commodify myself as desperation or as to be a jigaboo, right? And so I look at desire now in a way where I follow it and decide it's healthy. Because sometimes it's not a good or bad thing. I just have to think about how it interacts with the way I live my life now. And that's a question that I'm hearing with me. How is it healthy or is it healthy for it now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can speak on here too. Hey, well, we have been passing quite a few social events and we never really like talk. We just had a regular conversation. Now I'm seeing you on stage and learning so much more about you and things also that not that I did not expect, but I was very intrigued. So I think what's so fascinating is that the intersecting identities of a person or of an author or a writer or an artist play a huge role in their existence in the world, and it differentiates them from other artists. Because sometimes people focus on one part of their identity and they tend to capitalize on it a lot, get ahead because it's comfortable. So, but you've mentioned so many things of like living at the intersection of narratives around the world, but also in combination with your own identity of being Black and queer, and then mentioning, wars, imperialism, and colonization. So I think the combination of all those things make a lot who you are, but your narrative. How do you feel that can show up in your work, in your achievements, and your accolades? Do you feel like maybe too much of the intersection confuses people who is a generic audience, or do you feel like there's particular audiences that want to amplify everything that you are, but not just one part of you? Because I feel everything that you talked about makes up your artistry, and not just one thing that's comfortable for a generic audience. Does that make sense? So I'm curious.
Yes, thank you. That was very generous. I think I want to pose the question back to the audience. Are you confused by your life? Because I brought everything. Honestly, I think that we have to think about how we have existed in the world. And we have to bring all of that to our life. We can't live and just think like this. Does not have an effect. Does not have a certain type of wisdom and brilliance. I rely upon the brilliance of my life. There was a lot of imposter syndrome coming, but Reed has been such a generous teacher. And so what I would like implore you to do is just think about in all the spaces in which you exist, how you exist, where you come from, where you want to go. And it's vital, not just as an artist, but as a human being, because the more you collect these pieces of yourself, the more you realize the person sitting across from you. You can have a thread there, or share a piece. It's like, oh, I can offer you this, and you can offer me this.
Lives. Audre Lorde says we do not live single issue lives.
Hey, beloved. Thank you for that answer to that question. And I'm curious as you learn more about the context of how one maybe conceived and the journey that it had, and specifically how Dartricia contextualized the evolution of the project under the three last sitting fascist presidents. I'm wondering if you ever wrestled with, as I've come to know you and the evolution of your politics, I'm wondering if you ever wrestled with poems written in the old way of thinking, or under the old understanding of the world, and how you bring them, or if you bring them along with you, and if they came along with, or maybe to the completion of the book, and maybe how you reconcile your evolution and the evolution of word thinking.
Yeah, thank you. That's already a warrior, a great poet here. I think about things on the margin of freedom. And if if the old analysis of something or the old text that I'm reading does not push the language there, push the existence there, it is our responsibility, with the language to envision and direct the reader to a place of freedom. And not just like an abstract version, but to say, oh, fresh water is possible. Clean air is possible. There should not be billionaires. There should not be a war going on. We can use that precise language. And I looked at some of my older work and I was trying to find precision because I understood the effects it took on me and my sister's life and my community's life. But I didn't know that there was policies making that happen. So now with that knowledge, I just put it to paper. And I rely on elders. Because they have some good stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you.